Go ahead, Brad. Start it up. Mike, hit Brad. I think he's fallen asleep. Go ahead. And we're live. Darren, welcome back.
Welcome back.
This is
Some of us never left.
Some of us have never, exactly.
And
We're
one of us
into this
certainly
chair.
has never arrived.
Nice. What do you mean? I don't get it. This is Module 3.
Yep.
We are in our advanced Windows Store app development with C# refresh for Windows 8.1.
Awesome.
Yes,
Good
that
job.
would be exam 70485.
8.5.
And we're going to talk about branding and monetization.
Yeah.
Branding and monetization. So I'm building an app not just for a hobby. I'm building an app because I want to make a little money out of it. Or I'm building an app and I absolutely do not want it to look like every other app. I want to brand it so it is special to me. Things that I can do special inside XAML, tools that are available to me, and so on.
Indeed.
What should we talk about first?
Let's talk about monetization.
Monetization.
This should be a subject that's dear to every developer's heart.
That's right. Money you can make.
Yes, money you can make.
So there's a couple ways to make money with your application in the Windows Store, and that's really what makes Windows 8 special, is you have the store and you have the ability to surface your app not only to an incredible breadth, right? I can give it out to over 200 countries, over, let's see, it's 70-some languages, 40-some currencies. I mean, really broad breadth, and right now it's the most it probably gives you more breadth than any other store.
Yes.
On any other platform. And so the first thing I can do is sell it.
Yep.
I can have an application that has a price, and we see this not less and less, but not as much.
Let's think about that one. Yeah. I mean, the reality is the behaviors of the buy-in public are evolving over time. And the expectations that people have around purchasing apps, people are really wanting to try things out. I mean, the Microsoft Store was great in terms of how it allowed this try or buy model, which had differentiated it from a number of the other stores out there.
Right.
That really allowed you to set up this scenario where you could try these things out and so on. But even so, over time, people are expecting to get apps for free.
They are. I mean, it's not so much that they're cheap either. They're still willing to buy, but they want to buy in a different way.
Yes.
And so one of the things you can do is purchases inside your app. So let's say you don't sell your app. Let's say you give it away for free. Inside your app, you can do like, remember our OneNote app, our TwoNote?
1.5.
Where you could keep notes, but maybe you can't save anything. And so
or you can only save 3 notes.
You can only save 3 notes. I wish I could have an unlimited number of notes. And so that's sort of like version 2 of the app, or you unlock the professional version or something like that.
Yep.
That's an in-app purchase that we refer to as a durable purchase, a purchase that you purchase one time and it never goes away.
And so there are facilities within the ecosystem to support that kind of scenario.
Just like you had mentioned that there's a trial mechanism. The trial mechanism is an API provided to store apps through the store, and then it is managing the trial, the timing.
And so that trial facility actually changes my application?
It doesn't have to. One of the things it can do is make it so your application doesn't run if you give it a time trial. You don't have to worry about that. The store does it for you. Or you can do a feature differentiated trial where you can ask if it's still in trial mode, and if it's not, then you turn off the ability.
But it's not magically going to add.
No, there's no code added to, right, exactly. There's no code added to your store app because you set it to be trial.
Okay.
But there is that API that will give you more information now as a result of it. Or I could sell level 2 to my game. I could sell the professional version of my app or anything like that for a durable sell inside. So it seems to the user that it's free, but they just actually paid potentially more money than they would have in the first place buying the app.
Okay.
That's sort of the
cunning.
freemium model, and it's very clever, very common, and you see everything going that way. I mean, you see everything. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The other would be consumables. This is very specific. You wouldn't necessarily use this in too many types of apps, but you would use it especially in things like games. Yeah? So a consumable would be like the sword, a power, some sort of a coin
in-game
to
gold.
buy something. Yeah, in-game gold. So those are consumable apps that you would buy again and again and again and again and again. Obviously, you wouldn't buy.
So you could set up an inventory of these consumable elements that could be purchased, but rather than having to create thousands and thousands of those things, you can turn around and say, I have a bag of gold 5. bag of gold with 10, bag of gold with 15.
Yeah.
These are the price points, and you could buy those as many times as you wanted.
Yeah, that's right. And it becomes internal currency, which is very easy for developers to use because it allows them to give currency as well without having to worry about any type of external system. Now, all of these can be exercised by the store and fulfilled, so that users can pay with their credit card or with PayPal or something like that.
So the store gives us the whole environment for the electronic transaction.
Right.
Okay.
They handle everything and they deposit the money into your account when it's done.
And that was a little bit different in 8.0, correct? That there wasn't quite as much support for all of these different scenarios.
That's right. When they introduced PayPal, it was really great as well. And when they introduced consumable goods, that was really great too. There were some of these edge cases that were, just really, some scenarios were blocked and now they're unblocked in 8.1. We also have the ability now when a purchase is done for you to attach to the receipt some sort of ID, and that allows me to have an enormous catalog. If I was a large book retailer, for example, and you came in to purchase, I don't have to put every single book into the catalog, into the store, I mean. Instead, I would put every price option into the store. As that is finished and executed, I would take the receipt that you just bought the book and attach which book it was or which piece of my inventory you actually purchased.
Okay.
That allows me to integrate an enormous back-end system without having to
Import
duplicate. Everything. Right, exactly.
And of course, maintenance was always a huge challenge in the original scenarios because you had to resubmit your app when you wanted to change the inventory that was available.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And so now
keeping that in sync became a job in its own, and you can throw that away now.
So one of the key things we really want to get across is that if you've not been producing an app with this kind of commerce model in the past because of restrictions that were available in place at the beginning in 8.0, those things have now been addressed. There's a lot of flexibility to really support a very vibrant ecosystem.
Yeah. And Microsoft doesn't do it for free. You get all these services, and they don't just give them to you. Much like other app stores, in fact, just like other app stores, there's a split to the store owner. In this case, Microsoft being the store owner, they split it a 30-70 split. And so that's right out of the gate, you're going to give 70% of your profits. No, 30% to the store, and they do all the fulfillment, and that's their charge. Now, unlike other stores, Microsoft's Windows Store changes that percentage after your app hits a $25,000 threshold. That includes selling your app or any in-app purchases aggregated together. And so once that hits $25,000, it changes down to 20%, 80% split. And so you get much more of the money that you're making. So the more successful the app, the more successful you can be as far as monetizing it as well.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah. Another way you can advertise that is outside of the store is advertising. So the store doesn't provide the ads or anything like that. It doesn't aggregate up to that $25,000. It's a different service outside. And so I can advertise by just giving my app away for free. In fact, I'll even give away all the levels to my game, let's say, but I will have an advertisement in the corner the entire time, and I get credit, or I get some sort of, it is credit. I get credit from the advertiser for the fact that I'm showing their advertisement at that time. And so now it's a totally different model. I can combine them, of course. I could both sell internally, sell things, and have an advertisement.
Oh, you could make it a durable purchase that you buy the option to ditch the ads.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
But there's a fine tightrope to walk there, isn't there?
There is, yeah. What would you think about?
Well, in terms of how annoying your ads are, because ultimately, if you make them too much front and center and they're occupying too much of the user's attention, they're going to hate your app. Yeah, and so you've got to walk that tightrope. You've got to make your application useful enough.
It's not difficult to uninstall an app in Windows 8.
It is not.
As soon as you're uninstalled, you're uninstalled.
Yes, and you're generating no revenue whatsoever.
Often I say, this is a cosmic battle between the developer and the uninstall button.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to think things through. If you make your user hate you, your app doesn't have a chance.
Exactly. Bring them in, make the experience that they have compelling, build a good solution that they enjoy using, and they'll reward you for it.
Yeah.
If vice versa, it's an irrelevant experience, it's too annoying, too frustrating, uninstall, done.
Uninstall and done. That's what users do all the. You know what? I install apps constantly. I install apps constantly as well. That's the nice new model allows it to be cleanly installed and uninstalled. That's really great. Okay, I would like to show the advertising SDK that Microsoft provides. But before I do, I want to point out two things: that you don't have to use Microsoft advertising, but even to the store, you don't have to use Microsoft even for fulfillment. So I could give my app away for free, and internally I could sell consumable or durable goods, and I could use PayPal or some other third party
service or whatever.
And they could totally leverage it, because I may have other apps on other platforms, and all of this is already done.
Yeah.
And I want to reuse the investment that I have there as I start to leverage the Windows platform. I don't want to have yet another one. No problem.
So if you're making sales through those, Microsoft's not taking its 30%.
Exactly. Not only does Microsoft not take the 30% off of it, somebody else is taking their 30%, but you also don't get penalized, right? It's not like you don't get brought up in the store and promoted if you've got a great app, or you don't get to go into a certain category. Nothing like that.
Okay.
If you don't use Microsoft, you just don't.
Because there's some stores out there that don't allow you to have any alternate purchase mechanism.
That's right. A store where you might buy fruit.
Yes.
All right, so actually, there's a legal thing that's working out, so they maybe be able to do that. All right, let me just show. I've got Visual Studio up here, and I have an empty app. I've called it Advertise in our suite of demos here. It doesn't have anything going on in it at all. It's just a blank app. And I want to show how I can integrate the advertising SDK directly to it. So the advertising SDK ships with Visual Studio 2013.
Which is different in 2013
That's
as
right,
opposed
I had to
12.
download the SDK before.
Yeah.
And so as
And if you have the 8 SDK, you'll get warnings in your applications if you migrate.
How do you know that?
I believe scars of mistakes past.
Let me show you another one right here. Exactly. Okay, so here's the project, in fact, for the sake of this demo, I'm going to go ahead and just scope to it so we don't see any of the other projects. Just know it's part of a larger solution. And so I'll right-click and do something that you did yesterday, but you actually did it from another mechanism, but the same kind of idea when you implemented Microsoft or Windows Azure Mobile Services. And that is, it's a service that I can include in Visual Studio, as is advertising. So I'll go down and I'll say Add New Item, but I'm not going to select New Item. Because I'm at the project level, it has Add Connected Service, and one of the connected services is the Microsoft advertising, which is called Pub Center.
Yeah.
Pub Center.
And that's not going to send you a message saying that you need to authenticate?
It will send me a message. Will it send me? No, it won't send me a message.
Okay.
All right. I have to be signed in, and so I have to. You must sign in to Pub Center to create. Sign in right here. There's a little bitty box. I'll just click sign in. It will not. Just in case, I'm just going to go ahead and hit that because there's no harm. Hey, I signed in. Done.
Excellent. Good.
Excellent. Now, it already knows that I have an application called Sample W8 Application, but I think it's important that I show how to create that, right? So I'm going to open up Internet Explorer here, and I'm going to go to pubcenter.microsoft.com. I always hate opening up MSN. You never know what
you never know what's going to be the top record.
I hate it. All right, so this is pubcenter.microsoft.com. That's the name of our advertising organization, and I don't log in right here. I really like this design. Instead, this very small text at the bottom where it says sign in with your Microsoft account, that's what I'm going to click, right?
Yeah.
And so, did you have something to do with this usability?
I think I spent moments.
Kind of has your hallmark.
I spent moments designing that.
I'm going to go ahead and click it anyway, and I'm going to log in this case, as my demo user. And so here's my demo user, and he'll go in and say, all right, I want to do some setup. He'll go into setup, and he has two things. An application, that's the app you're going to build. You can build as many as you want. But inside a single application, you'll have ad units.
Yeah.
And so that's just an advertisement. And where you might have an advertisement in more than one place. So you'll create more than one ad unit, so you could have them different sizes. The ad unit decides what size it's going to be. So here in this case, I have a single application called Sample W8 Application. You could call yours more appropriately what yours is.
Yeah.
And here's the ad unit. Let me go into the ad unit because it makes more sense. It defines here what the size is going to be. I'll zoom in a little bit, it's easier to see. It's 250 by 250, which is a pretty standard square size. But more importantly, it gives me both the app ID and the ad unit ID. That's what I'll need.
That's key information you need to integrate the other side.
That's right, because the control that I'm going to use is going to reach out to the service and say, give me an ad, and the service is
So ultimately, your app needs to be able to report to which account these ad views need to be credited.
That's exactly right. I might have 2 ads that are the same size, but I would still create 2 ad units for reporting purposes.
Yes.
If nobody ever goes to the details page, or something like that.
Yeah,
Or,
it's a way of introducing instrumentation into your app to a certain extent.
yeah, and then think about it that way. It really is. One thing that's worth considering is that the pub center may not always give you an ad. They've only got so many ads to give. There could be a lot of reasons for that. Maybe the language that it's currently selected, maybe the region that you're currently in, maybe the type of ad that you're requesting or the type of app that you've written.
Yeah, so the category of your application when you're submitting to the store, that could influence the targeting. If you've got a sports or fitness application, you've got a bunch of advertisers that are advertising product.
That's right.
Nearly said product there. Instead, say Bing Fitness. There we go. Then
Oh, I see.
that will help filter.
It will, but I mean, let's think of this as a downside. You won't always get a fill.
Yes.
And as a result, you can use, I always recommend the ad rotator. And so you can find the ad rotator for Windows 8 very, very easily by searching with your favorite search engine. And it's made for WinRT, and what it allows you to do is create a Pub Center account just like this, create an ad unit just like this, but then go over to other providers, right? So Pub Center is one place to get advertisements. So is Ad Duplex. So is
So you need to create accounts on those
every
additional
one
providers.
of them will require it. That's right.
Yep.
And this is a mitigation you would do no matter what platform you're on, because you want to get as much of a fill rate as you can. And so by aggregating these, if one fails, it goes to the next. If it fails, it goes to the next. And then you have a final option of an in-house advertisement.
Yeah.
And so an in-house would be, hey, I've got another app on the phone you might want to try out. And so it's you don't just have a blank space. Okay, so I'm back to Visual Studio. I showed how to create the application, showed how to create the ad unit. I had a quick little right click that said Add Connected Service. I signed in, and it went and fetched, but based on that ID. Here's my sample W8 application. So I'll go ahead and just select it, and you can see right here, here are the ad units. I only have one, so it's easy for me to select which one I've got. I'll say Go, and it adds a text file to my project just to give me some sample code and tell me how to start. And so this is a quick little stack panel. It even puts it in a full page, to kind of show how it might go in the full page. So a quick little stack panel of where to kind of toss it into. The only thing that you need to know, you don't need the page, but you do need this namespace that they've given for Microsoft Advertising WinRT UI. Now the reference has already been added to my project for me.
Okay.
That was done by that action that I just went through. And so I will, I'm going to take that namespace. And this is totally what they should have done. I should not have to. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They should watch our class. And I'm going to move the namespace down into the control so I don't have this, I have to move them around together. So now I'll just grab my control.
And that's actually an alternate syntax that we haven't discussed previously. We've talked about introducing namespaces above, but because this is XML, we can move these namespace definitions into the elements and attributes directly.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's right. And so that makes it so that they can be scoped as well if I need to use that namespace again and again. So I'm just in a text file. Obviously, nothing would run. I'm going to go ahead and just copy this out.
Situation normal then.
XAML is just text, but you have to put it in a XAML file. Exactly. And so here's the grid. I'm going to drop the code right here. It'll be the ad control. And so they've pre-set things for me, which actually is quite nice. They've already put in the ad unit ID, which matches the one on that website. And they've already put in this long GUID for the application ID, which it would also match. They've also preset the height and width, which is absolutely important. And a lot of developers forget that one. And then it just has a default location of top left. You could move it wherever it belongs in your application. Hopefully you have an intention for where it was going to go in the first place.
You should be designing these things. You don't just slap it in there in the middle because that seems like a good place at the end.
Yeah.
Think about this
that's
from the
exactly
outside.
right. That's exactly right. Because what will happen is you or a designer creates a beautiful UI, and then you start smashing your application around to make room for a banner or something like that.
Yeah.
As a result, often we put advertisements like this as interstitial ads, either data interstitial or page interstitial. And interstitial just means gap, and So I load up a page, and we've all been to websites that do this, and it's very effective no matter how annoying it is. And before you get to the page, it pops up and says, first, a word from our sponsor.
Yeah,
and it shows the advertisement. Right.
Yeah.
The other one, I don't actually like that one, partly because it's so in your face, and it only shows it for a moment.
Also interrupts your flow.
That's right.
And again, there's only so many of those things you tolerate before you find somewhere else.
Yeah, this is really about usability. You're 100% right. And so here I am. I have it here. Oh, I wanted to say you could have interstitial to the page or interstitial to the data.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot
in the grid
more.
view.
Yeah, the grid view shows a bunch of records. The third one happens to be an ad. The user barely even cares about that, right? Because they can keep on moving. It doesn't interrupt them. Let me go ahead and run this so you can see what happens. And there's no design time ad in this case, so I'll just run this. It'll build, deploy, and execute it for me. And now I have a little Microsoft advertisement up in the top left. I just made 0.001 cents just for this demo. That's about all
And that's about all you're going to make. Yeah.
Now, this is worth saying that this hasn't been filled yet, right? This
Yes.
is not an advertisement. This is the default. It's reaching out, and for one reason or another, isn't bringing in an actual ad. It's a much better demo when it brings in a real ad. But again, I would wrap this, if I were doing it, I would wrap this in the ad rotator.
Yep.
It would, an error is raised when it doesn't actually fill.
Because right now, this would be really hard to sell.
It's selling advertising. That's
Exactly.
funny. And yeah, so the ad rotator would detect that it wasn't filled, and it would switch over to another one. That's how you do advertising. I mean, it really is that easy. It's just a control. If I didn't want to use their little piece right there, my toolbox now has an ad control in it. I would drag that over, and it would be up to me then to fill out all the
correct
pieces
IDs
to
and
it.
so on.
Yeah, what's nice is, and this is new in 8.1, when I do drag it over, the application ID is filled out for me.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
That's useful.
And so is the ad unit. I wonder how it knew which ad unit it was. That's
Maybe that's now a new element in the package.
That's pretty cool, I must say.
Yeah.
In fact, that's really cool. All right, that's advertising. Here's the okay. Never mind. I will say the ad unit you could give it longitude and latitude to help more direct the advertising that comes to it. That's just up to you. You don't get paid more. You don't get paid less. It just might help make your advertising more targeted.
Especially if the app that you were building was also about local information. So it meant the ads were more in line with what you're presenting.
That's right. So that's one way to monetize your app, but let's also talk about branding.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit yesterday, how we can create styles and resources.
And also how the environment actually helps support our continued brand presence in such as the live tiles continuing to show a small preview of the application icon and so on and so forth, so that the user is constantly aware of what application they're using.
That's right. All of these are there. The reality is you don't have to do any of them, right? A lazy developer could absolutely do the bare minimum and still get it into
Ship
the
everything
store.
as black.
Yeah, that may not make it in the store.
And we saw a bunch of those apps initially.
with just gray and black and gray and black, straight from the template.
Just straight from the
Visual
template.
Studio.
It's good job, guys.
Yeah.
Way to push the boat out.
If that was you,
yeah, we'll find you.
I uninstalled your app. Let's just say it that way. I don't know why I installed it in the first place. So that's right. There are all these other mechanisms. Many of them we've already talked about. This one I want to talk about is more around the idea of theming. So I can create a series of styles that makes my app look one way. But then I might want to create a second theme that allows the developer or the user to customize the way my app looks. So in this case, my app is red, and the user really likes purple. So they go in and they change it so that it's purple instead of red, right? That's really nice.
Maybe that's a purchasable download.
Yeah, an additional theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Sell everything.
Exactly. Why not?
That's exactly right. I don't know if that's a good best practice to sell everything. You can pan to the right, but not to the left.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
Okay,
Uninstall.
I'm gonna pull up a demo here. Actually, let's try and do this from scratch. Right? What could possibly go wrong, Darren?
It's the mind of them boggles.
I said that with the Blend demo still up. I love that. All right. I'm going to open up Visual Studio. I'm going to open up a blank project just so developers can sort of see this the way it is. And then I will actually jump back to the canned demo because it does a little bit more. But I want to show the general idea of how to do it. So this is going to be a blank Windows App Store. And I'm going to create a resource that allows me to change let's just for now change the background color of the page that I'm on. So
okay, so you're going to create a resource, or you're going to create a resource dictionary, or you're going to use do it in the page or app XAML?
Well, what would you like me to do? I'd like to demonstrate all of them to talk about resource management a little bit as well.
So let's create an external resource dictionary and show how we can merge that in.
All right, perfect. So here's the color of my background, or the page on my background. And this is handled currently as a literal. So I've put in the exact color that I want it to be.
Yep.
And the color is defined right here. I have both a brush and a color, but the color is defined right here. That's all I want to change. And so I'll go down and I'll say create to new resource, or convert to new resource. And just like you said, I can pick the scope.
Yep.
And so which one did you say? I can't
Let's
remember.
create a new dictionary.
Okay. Let's create a local dictionary. Oh, a new dictionary, a file.
Yeah.
Okay. That's no, not right now. I don't have a file there yet, and this won't create the file. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
So let me instead put it at the. That's hilarious. You had to do that, really? Great. All right, I'm going to put it at the page level, so if I had 2 grids, I could at least reuse it there. And so I'll go ahead and call this my color. And now you can see in the XAML, which is really the only place you can see it, the color is no longer set to a literal. Now it's set to a static resource that really points up to the resources of the page. That's the scope that it's in. And so just for fun, I'm going to jump out to Blend so you can see me manipulate this just a little bit. So I'll say open with Blend. It'll launch Blend and pass in this project. And I can go over to the resources folder right here, or it's a tab, resources tab, and I can see right on the page, just like we said, there's my color defined. Now I want to change the scope so I can use it on more than one page. So I'm going to grab it and just drag it up to app.xaml. Now as soon as I do that, it's now not only in scope there as well, but if I were to open up the projects and go to app XAML, I would see that it's actually added to the XAML, oops, there we are, added to the XAML itself, right, moved up into that file.
Yep.
And then this is globally scoped. And now you're absolutely right. I could go out and move it into a file as well, which is what I need to do. And so let me, let's do this manually first so that developers can kind of get a feel and not think there's a lot of magic around it.
Yeah, and then show the magic that the tools can do. Because often we're guilty of that, of jumping in, leveraging a bunch of capabilities, and all of a sudden something seems like it's magically changed. But as we've mentioned in other sessions, everything we do with the tools you can do directly yourself.
Yeah, you totally can. And sometimes it's better to do it by yourself, at least at first, so you understand it, and then allow the tools to do it for you. So I'm going to create a new item in a folder called Styles. I created the styles there, and I'm going to use what you referred to, the resource dictionary. So this is an external XAML file that allows me, and I'll call this one red. And so we'll create more than one here in just a second. So
I detect a theme.
You see something coming up? Yeah, that's good. So yeah, we put it in app XAML. Now I'm going to take it out of app XAML, right like this. Right? And I will. There's a lot to to link to a file, and so I'm glad there's tooling to do it. To be honest, because
every time you get the merge dictionary syntax wrong, yes.
I really do.
Yeah, I know.
And I've done it a dozen times.
But you only do it once during an application lifecycle, and every damn time I go back and go, oh, I need to do that again.
It's totally true. And so now I've got a file with my resource in it called my color, and it's in red. And so, in fact, to make this easier, so I can recognize it, I'm just going to change it to red rather than try and read the hex every time. I made a copy of the file, and I'll change it to blue. Kind of RGB going on, and a BLUE. Just like that, and then I'll create one more, and it's easier just to copy it so I don't have to worry about it, although I might create one from scratch for some reason, and we'll make this one green.
Green?
Green.
Amazing.
Red, green, and blue. So if I go into each one, you can see that they are each set, and of course I could have lots of styles here.
Yeah.
This is a dictionary that can be filled and filled and filled and filled, but at the same time, do remember, they all get put into memory, they all have to be parsed, they all have to be used, and so don't go too crazy, but sometimes you have to. This is the best way to theme your application. Now, it's not referenced to my application yet.
Yep, so it's not in scope, and so if we look at the UI, we probably won't see it being red.
You will not see anything red. So now Blend is the right thing to do because it's just too easy to get wrong. So I can go to the resources inside Blend, and I can see, here's my pages, and I can open up the individual page, and I can see each of them are there, even though they aren't in scope of anything else. Right?
Yes.
So I want to go to the app XAML, and I always say link to resource. This will create that merge dictionary linked resource for me, so I don't have to get it wrong. And it has red, green, blue, and red. Why are there two reds?
I have no idea. Do you?
Let me go look at the structure. Did I copy it twice? I mistakenly put one in the root.
Ah, well, don't do that.
No. There we go. Got rid of that.
Hooray for tooling, because otherwise we'd have been really confused later on.
That's exactly right. That is the most positive thing you've said all day.
I know, it was a mistake. It won't happen again.
Are you doing all right? All I did was right-click AppXAML and say link to resource and selected blue. I could select all the others as well, and it would keep linking them. I only want one at a time, so I'm not going to goof around with that right now. So now I'm just going to close out of Blend for a second just so you can see what happened. I'm going to go into AppXAML right here. And you see all that it really did was it set a property inside the application. So just like almost everything inside XAML, it has a resources property. A resources property is of type resource dictionary. So it's expecting a resource dictionary. So here's my resource property, and it's set by this class, a resource dictionary. And it has a property of its own called merge dictionaries. And merge dictionaries can take one or more, or none actually, zero or more, other dictionaries. This is the right way to go. Get a series of files that you have out there, spread out all of your styles for whatever reason, bring them all and treat them as one. So right here it's blue. If I wanted red, I could add it right here, but that would only cause a conflict. Yeah. And so now when I go into
would it call
main
it conflict?
page,
Because everything's named differently.
well, I called them all my color.
Ah, I see.
And it wouldn't actually be a conflict. It would just be last in wins, right?
Yes.
Everyone would override
Which is confusing.
the other. It is confusing, unless you understand the concept of last.
And in and winning.
You lost me at win.
You're just not used to it, are you?
Some of the advancements in Visual Studio 2013, as far as IntelliSense now, I can see static resources available to me in this scope.
Yes.
I can go static resource and just hit space, and it shows me everything that applies. So I may have a lot of resources that don't show up here because they aren't colors.
And for people who are using ReSharper out there that does a lot of this kind of IntelliSense previously, notice the current version that certainly I'm using in Visual Studio 2013 isn't as useful as that's built into Visual Studio in terms of actually scoping the resources available to the type of control in which you're doing IntelliSense. So for right now, I switch off the ReSharper IntelliSense in XAML.
Oh man, that is like throwing down the challenge to the ReSharper developers.
I know, I can hear them right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, look at this.
They'll probably actually tell me that the current beta version already supports it.
That's what they exactly. They are creative.
They are.
They really are. All right, so just like before, I'm using a static resource. Now, though, I want to go in and make a manipulation to this resource, and all I really have to do is go to application.resource and set it to something else. And so let me go ahead and do that. And the easiest way is I'll just create a couple buttons if it's all right with you.
Go for it.
I'll do it right here on the canvas. Obviously, we would do something more like a setting. You would go into a settings dialog instead. But I can do it a lot faster, and this is going to be a quicker demo this way. And I know that you're getting hungry. So we'll say red, green, and blue. So we'll make the first one red. And so this is R. That's so I remember to come back to it. Green, G. Yeah, right there. That's great. And then blue. And so each one is going to have repetitive code. So I'll create T. Right, it's Norwegian for blue.
It's teal.
And so I'll make I want to make the logic reusable here. So I'll just create a quick method called change theme. The only thing that is going to be different between each of them is the URI to the path of that file, and then I'll swap it out from there. So I'll just pass in a URI, and we'll call it theme for fun. And all I need to do now is build the resource object that is going to replace the resource of the application.
Okay, so it's kind of extract everything out, clear it out, throw in a replacement. It's not going in and modifying the existing.
No, that's exactly right. In fact, modifying an existing one is problematic because if you do that, you'll get an error.
And is this kind of the difference between static and dynamic resources?
It is not yet, but I'm going to be to that because what's going to happen is I'll go in and I'll change these resources, but all of those styles have been applied when the UI was rendered. And so I'll have to come back now and somehow cause the UI to render again.
Okay.
So let me create first just a, this will be new resource dictionary. This will be the base resource, and if I were to go back to AppXAML, I'll show you what I'm creating. I'm creating this right here, and it only has a merge dictionary property set, so it's not much I have to do to it. So I can take it right here. First I'll create, I'm really doing a great job on naming, by the way. So I'm going to say var t, that's my theme, equals new resource dictionary, and I'll set the source equal to whatever the theme that was just passed in. I won't set it to throw. To whatever the theme that was just passed in. So now I have two resource dictionaries, just like I have here. I have a resource dictionary right here. That's what is the base resource dictionary. And then I have this one that represents the theme. And so here's the base one here, and here's the theme. And I want to inject the theme now into the base.
Okay.
Easy enough to do. In fact, I could do it like this and save myself another line because I like shortcuts in syntax. All right, so here we go. This will be merged dictionary, and it'll have the initial, what do we call it? The initializer, the collection initializer that I can just pass T to right there. So what's happening is merged dictionaries is a collection of dictionaries. This is the syntax to create a new collection and give it its initial values.
Yeah.
It's really only usable right here, this type of syntax, but it makes it so now it's ready to go. So I say app, that's my current app. Actually, that's my current when I say .current. And then it has resources that are both readable and writable. I'm going to set them to my new resource dictionary called R.
Okay, so we're replacing what was already loaded during the application startup cycle.
All of the old ones are gone now. So if I had inline defined some styles right here, you know, because that's not unusual.
Yeah, so those are gone too.
Those are gone too. So if I had another color or a font size that I might put right here, then those are completely gone. And it's up to me. It's easy to fix.
So now you'd need to iterate through this first.
That's all I have to do.
Okay.
That's all I have to do is iterate through it, add it to the new one I'm about to replace it with, and it'll work just fine. Yeah. Okay. That's a line or two, and it's easy enough. Not for this demo, but I'm going to stick to the plan.
That sounds like a great idea.
Now, in all reality, now let me go up. So this is red. So I'll say change theme, new URI, and I have to use that special syntax that we've sort of been talking about all day yesterday.
ms-appx?
ms-appx. So I'll say ms-appx, and then I want to say the folder that it goes to, that's styles, and then I want to say the file that I want to pick, and that is red, R for red, red.xaml. Done. Now that passes, actually, one more thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this is an absolute URI. That catches me a lot.
Yeah.
It catches me a lot.
I mean, so oftentimes it will derive it correctly.
Yeah.
But every now and again,
especially using that ms dash, it seems to go nuts on that. So
yeah.
It doesn't matter. These are all going to have very similar logic. I'll just change it from red to green, and in this one, red to blue. Now, each of them, as you click the button, will pass in the new URI. That new URI will be built and attached as the new resources. Yeah. But it won't work, Darren. The reason it won't work is because changing the resources...
You've done it live?
It's because I'm doing it here. The reason it won't work is because because all of the styles were applied at the time of rendering.
Okay.
Rendering is long over. And those
so
are
we've
all...
changed the reference information, but because they were pulled in and set, and it's one way.
It is one way. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So now, how do we cause it to do it? Is there a secret method out there? Is there some sort of special technique? Really, there's not. There's no way to tell the UI to render itself again without just restarting the UI. So I don't mean restarting the application. I just mean navigating to the page.
So we can't invalidate layout or do an update or anything along those lines. We actually have to reinitialize the whole presentation.
That's right, and I can invalidate layout, but it won't invalidate the style. And so there's no way to do that. So instead, the easiest way is just to navigate to a page and then go back to the previous page. And the reason you would do that instead of just navigating to the same page again is because you may have passed in some parameters, and the go back will still take care of all that for you. So it seems like a weird thing to do. Honestly,
so you almost would want to put your theme change on a different page. So you could navigate to a different page, do your theme change, and then go back, and it's done.
But you always end up putting it on a settings flyout instead. And so then you change it, and the UI doesn't update. Everybody thinks it's broken.
Yeah.
So every change requires some sort of navigate. So it's a bummer.
Yeah.
It's a bummer that there's not a method like that, but there's not, so we're just going to go with it.
Maybe one day somebody will listen to you.
Maybe. We'll see about that. This dot frame, navigation inside... People do listen to me.
Oh, okay.
I'm sort of a big deal. This dot frame is how we navigate inside. Everything's inside a frame, just like it's a browser. We say navigate and pass the type we want to go to. This simple demo only has a single page to go to in the first place. So I could say this dot get type, and that returns the type of, let's say, GTT. There we go. This dot get type will return the type that it'll navigate basically to itself. Mm-hmm. And that's still not enough, because that navigation, and you'll know
your
on
the back stack.
Yeah, it's on the back stack, and I haven't passed any parameters to it, and that might be an important part. Mm-hmm. And so I'll just do one more step. What I do in other applications, to be honest, is usually I create a dummy page that has no logic, and it doesn't have any cost really to go to.
A theme change into Stitchel.
Yeah, it's sort of, right. And I go there, and I just go back really quickly, and I don't worry that theme page has any cost in time. And then I just say this dot frame dot go back. Of course, I don't have to check to see if I can go back, because I just navigated forward doing it this way. Yeah. And now then I go forward and back way too fast for a developer to see. That's all it really...
Users will, but developers won't.
No, you can step into it. You can make it as slow as you want.
Exactly.
And that navigation is all you need to re-render the page and take advantage of the new styles that you have. Let's test it.
You're a brave man.
Let's just go to break, shall we? All right, it all starts as green. I think it's RGB. I should have changed the text. I can click the top one. It changes all the theme, resets the resources. Yeah, don't try not to act too surprised.
I'm hyperventilating right now.
Navigating back. It really is navigating, but it's going so fast that you just don't see it. Green and blue. It's the only thing it does there. Red, green, and blue. See, I told you it works for red, green, and blue. And I would move this then out into a settings dialog, which would be probably a more natural place to put it, but certainly not a requirement. You can do it from anywhere.
So why don't you stun us with your canned one?
Oh, you want to see it? Yeah, okay, yeah, why not? So I have I do happen to have a canned one right here. And it is right there, called Custom Styles. And let me go ahead and run it. Yeah, it looks very similar.
Looks very similar.
With a couple of variations.
A couple of interesting variations.
So this is sitting on top of a
hub.
A hub control. Thank you. Yes, and each of these bands represents a hub section that's been set up with nothing but a single button. And I've used a control template, like we did in a previous module. I've used a control template to change the way the buttons look.
And so that control template is pulled into one of those resource files.
That's exactly right. In fact, let me make it a little bit bigger, because it's very, very useful. So here's that styles folder, which is very, very similar. I'll open up blue, and you can see I have the my color is still blue, just like we had before. I used a brush instead of a color, same concept. And then I have this control template for the button. This is the button template. It's named, which means it only applies to the ones that actually absorb it. And then I have green here. Green has my color set to green, like you would expect. But look, it's a little bit different. It's going to make buttons look different when you go to green. And red's the same thing. When I go to a red, it's got a different path laid out, so it doesn't look quite the same. That means that when I go and change the theme, it doesn't only change the color, but it also changes the way the actual controls are laid out, which is sort of cool.
It's just very cool, because the reality is, you can take your theme and branding concept beyond just this color. If you're talking about creating an application that maybe is a fan application for different football teams. You could turn around and have themes for each of those football teams that change badge logos, buttons, and all those kind of things. So it's not just going Bronco orange. It's also bringing in the Bronco symbol.
Yeah, and all the buttons look like footballs. Right?
Exactly.
And I switch to the Colorado Rockies, and everything turns blue, and all the buttons look like baseballs or something like that.
Exactly.
Why not? That'd be cool, actually.
It is.
In this
new product.
Yeah, done. We're putting that in the store tonight. I'm not doing anything tonight.
No, I'm doing nothing tonight now.
And so where's the button to actually make the change? Well, we've implemented this one a little bit more correctly. I will go over to the charms here and go to settings. The settings flyout is all prepared for me in my options. So I'll go up and set options. We implemented this, right? Just like we did in the previous module. I say we loosely.
Yeah. Yeah, you had nothing to do with it.
And so here are the four. This looks like your design.
It does. It does. It's legible from a distance.
Red, green, and blue. I'll tell you what's beautiful is, even though there's a pop-up, the pop-up is outside of the page and onto the frame. And so I'm going to click this, and just like our other example, it's going to navigate to and back. And when it does, the flyout doesn't go away. And so I'll click on blue.
And we're already on blue.
Yeah, no big change. I'll click on green. All the buttons turn into stars. All the colors change then to green. Developers may wonder, watching this, how can I have all these different shades of green when I only had a single color that I was defining? That's just because I have
fancy opacities.
I have just playing with opacities to create some complementary colors. That's exactly right. And then I can go to red, and all the buttons turn into this little swirly storm. It's really neat.
It's incredible.
Each one, nothing has fundamentally changed. It's still just a button on a canvas. If I were to go into Visual Studio and look at the main page here, all right, just like this, it really is just a hub section, and it really does just have a single button in it, right? And where's the button? Why did I say that? I didn't put the button in the hub section. I overlaid it over the hub. All right. Don't do it this way, but nonetheless, there it is. It's nice. And it's just a button.
This is using the hub section just purely for aesthetics.
This is exactly the way the hub section was not intended to be used. Right.
Wonderful.
And anyways, you can see that it's applied the static resource to the button template that we've identified in our theme files.
Awesome. You now have 4 minutes to do extended splash.
Great. Extended splash is really more of a discussion than anything else. So that's great. All right, there's custom styles. I can't imagine a developer not doing that. It's so fun.
It is.
Although it's not a small amount of work to go and retheme an entire application. For sure it's not. All right, extended splash. So when an application loads, every app gets a splash screen, like it or not.
Yep.
And that splash screen shows for, I think it's a maximum of 15 seconds prior to when it is going to terminate your app if you don't show a UI.
Yes.
So that's actually quite a long time.
It is quite a long time. Gives you a lot of opportunity for your application startup cycles. And that really caters for different levels of device performance.
If a application, however, does require a long time, and you're at risk of being terminated because you take longer than 15 seconds, there's a strategy for you. But even more so, a user, doesn't like to look at a static screen for 15 seconds.
No patience whatsoever. So you want to transition to something that implies progress.
That's exactly right. You don't want, so don't do all of your work during startup.
Yeah.
Do it at, in this case, the extended splash screen. So this is sort of the pipeline of activity that occurs.
Yeah.
So at the top level, you can see the standard non-extended way. So the splash screen appears that everybody gets. App XAML CS executes the launched event and activated event. And then we start our preparation. Call out to our systems and do whatever and try and get it inside 15 seconds or fail. Then the splash is dismissed by the system because now we're ready to navigate past those overridden methods and go to this first page. That's the mistake. And so what we're really doing is taking this prepare section and moving it out of app XAML. And so we'll splash screen, and then we immediately dismiss the splash screen because we have no work. And we go then to the splash screen, which is really a first page in a lot of ways. And,
and that's a key point, is I think your brackets on the page here are really illustrating the parts where your application is not running to when your application is running. And we've actually already completed the startup and delegated display to the extended splash at this point. So your application has started, so the operating system isn't going to terminate you as taking too long to start or anything along those lines.
Exactly, because the default splash screen is 100% static, doesn't even have a spinner or anything. And so there's no way to communicate that your application isn't failing. And so we make that as short as possible. And I'll show how the application looks, and then we'll just walk through the brief code on it. It's, you know what, it's a little bit of code, but it's a lot of bit of thinking. Because
it is.
If you don't know XAML very well, you might be confused by a couple of the things that we do. So this is more, by the way, than just adding another page. In fact, let me
It's really extending the whole startup life cycle of your application. And there's a number of things that we have to do to support that.
Yeah, I don't mind saying it's a little sophisticated. I don't mind saying that we didn't dream it up. All right, so this is a splash screen, a good example of what you should never do. But it is at least an active splash screen that gives some sort of feedback to the user that something is going on. It looks just like my splash screen. You didn't even see the transition to the active splash screen or the extended splash screen because it was so fast. Then I go into my application that, in this case, is nothing, right? There's no point in showing an application. We're really talking about splash. And so here is where we do it. Everything's, of course, going to be in app XAML. That's what we have to change the way that it thinks. And so we move there are all kinds of ways that your application could be launched or activated. And we take all of those and aggregate them into a single event or a single method or a single block of logic called activate. You could call yours anything.
Yeah. There's overrides for the different types, but we can pull them all together into this single one and deal with them this way.
And there are other ways that your app may be activated. We talked yesterday a little bit about protocol activation. Whatever that is, that logic can be added
tiles.
Right here. Right. And so what happens is I come in and I ask what the previous state is. So the user has used my application, quickly gone to check their email. Now they're coming right back. So the previous state of my application is running.
Yes.
And so it was quickly suspended, quickly resumed, and I don't have anything to do.
Yep.
And so in that case, I'll say I'll just go straight to the main page. I don't need to go load data again because that's really what my my splash screen is going to do.
And this really facilitates a fast startup scenario.
Yeah, that's right. You don't want to show every time they swap out of your app. You don't want to go back to the resuming ... resuming ...
Yeah, you might see that on, say, some Windows Phone applications where they haven't included that capability to do the fast switching.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so the else is sort of where the magic is. I go and create an instance of my splash. Now, I haven't even created the frame that I show yet. I haven't created the frame. I haven't created the page. All I've created is the splash itself, which really inherits from page, so it's not something special. I set what the splash screen object is, so that's how I know the default image as well as the default image location that the operating system has put together for my app. So I want to make my extended splash model exactly pixel perfect.
Because we have to deal with scaling.
That's right.
You know, because the operating system is establishing, okay, this is precisely where I put your application startup logo during the system-generated splash screen. If you want to have a seamless transition between that system splash and the extended splash, everything's got to be positioned exactly the same way, sized exactly the same way, and so on.
Right. This activate method, by the way, it will run synchronously, which means as soon as it's finished, the operating system is signaled that your application has loaded, and it no longer is subject to that 15-second kind of punishment. Right? So I create a splash, which needs two things. Where do I go when the splash is finished, when all the loading and all that sort of stuff is done? In this case, I'm giving it an action or some sort of delegate or function that I'm passing in to navigate to the main page. And then I'm also giving a reference, like you said, to splash screen. Now, very important, I set the window.current, which is not a frame yet. Developers know that that's a frame, but it's not yet because we're way too early in the pipeline. We set the current content to the splash as a UI element and don't create a frame.
Yes.
Right? That's because we want to do everything nice and fast. We don't need all this extra infrastructure. All we want to do is jump right to the splash. This is the fastest, most efficient way to do it.
And so if you don't do this, if you end up creating too many elements, you will get a flicker.
You will actually get a flicker. That's exactly right. Doing it like this, nice and efficient, means it transitions beautifully between the built-in splash screen to your splash screen. And because you have a reference to the original splash screen, you can make that transition perfect. Right? Yeah. You don't get a performance flicker, and you don't get a jolt in location of the image. So now the splash is where the logic is, but there's really nothing to it. This is really the beginning of it. It's up to you what you do in your splash. It's up to you where you go after the splash. You may not need to pass in a navigate command. You know, it might know where to go anyway, and the splash just goes from there. This is the core logic of it. I'll go ahead and jump to ours just so you can see it, that we have an awaitable method here to load things, literally it's called. And it would go and get whatever the expensive resources are that you have. Maybe you would log a user in so you can authenticate them. Maybe you would go and test a web service and get initial data. Maybe you would read from a file or a local database like SQLite. Whatever it is that's right for you, you do it right here. In our case, we do a task.delay 10 seconds.
Yeah, which is enterprise grade.
You can find this in the store under You've Got Plenty of Time. That's exactly right.
Yeah. It's $50.
I will say there is a resize method that is called every time window.current is resized, and it's called initially, and all that logic is the placement of that image to make sure you don't get any
because you might be starting up your application in portrait mode.
That's right. And though it takes 10 seconds for your application to load, and in those 10 seconds, they change the landscape. The operating system knows what's going on. They'll reposition the image, and they'll give you the updated information so that you can put the image where it belongs.
Because again, we want our application to be responsive throughout.
I really do wish that this was defaulted in the templates. I think every application should have an extended splash screen just right out of the...
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a couple
just a little
lines of
placeholder
code
that says do this, do this, do this, and away you go.
You know, we should create our own base template.
We should.
I mean, there are all these little things that everybody should have, settings, about, privacy policy, all these things that would be so easy to have.
And then we'd have to support it for every version henceforth.
I know, that's the reason we don't do it.
Exactly.
Because in reality, I do have my own, but I would never share it because people would be, your app doesn't work.
Your app doesn't work with 8.2.
Yeah, exactly. That's because that's what everybody else sounds like.
Indeed.
That we were doing an exact... Oh, okay. Beautiful. All right. The reality is we're done. We talked about, we'll just kind of reflect here.
Yeah.
We talked about monetization, the ability to sell, kind of take advantage of the long tail with a freemium model. You can sell internally consumable and durables, as well as use monetization as far as advertising.
Yeah. We also demonstrated that the only way you can customize your app is coloring it red, green, or blue. No, we illustrated the fact that there is a huge richness in the ability to abstract presentation from the behavior of the application. We've shown how you can move these styles into resources and shown how you can dynamically change those things, and also a little trick on how to refresh your UI.
Yeah, that's right. And then finally, just now, we were talking about the extended splash, which kind of belongs in every single application you make, because you want to have some ability to make the user get a response immediately, while still giving yourself and your application time to load the type of data that you have so that it has so that it can be as rich as it needs to be and doesn't have a constant spinner once they're into your UI. Yeah. I like doing that. I like logging in there, all kinds of things that you could do. Obviously, you still might need to interact with your data asynchronously in other screens as well. Absolutely. But nonetheless, there it is.
What I was going to say is, once we get around to uploading our code onto xamlcodeplex.com, we do have an application that actually has a richer implementation of the extended splash, so you will be able to see that in more detail, see how some of the features and certainly the image positioning and so on is actually implemented, which is useful. But now it's time to go for a meal break.
Yes, it is indeed. Meal break will end at top of the hour. Is that still true? Yeah, let's do it. So that makes it 45 minutes. We'll see you after that. Bon appetit. Darren, let's go get something to eat.
Sounds good.
Goodbye.
Nom nom.